In 1577, in the town of Blythburgh, England, a church service was progressing as normal. You know, fire, brimstone, and all that. I imagine in 1577 they didn't have awful Hillsong tracks to play. Unexpectedly, the doors burst open, and in ran a giant black dog. It had blood-red eyes, a necklace of bones, and a howl that could curdle milk, and it ran through the church, ripping out the necks of a man and a young boy. At some point during the chaos, the church steeple collapsed in on itself and the dog left, his claw marks still dug deep into the doors of the church to this very day. This isn't the first story of the Black Shuck's appearance in England, but it was what introduced me to the cryptid. When I was a kid, this thing scared the hell out of me, but nowadays I find the stories of Europe's black dogs absolutely fascinating, especially when so many otherwise apocryphal accounts are backed up by legitimate historical records. This isn't really an inherently funny topic like detailing every instance of prime ministers shitting their pants, but it's something I've been interested in for a very long time, and if anything's gonna break my rut, it'll be this. I'm so sorry it took so long to get this video out. I've been through 3 PCs breaking down in 2 years, and grad school is very hard, and also the PCs breaking down means I have to remake every goat asset from scratch, and I had literally hundreds of them, and once I got it remade, it fucking broke again. The Black Dog legend is unique in that it's persisted through European culture, yet seemingly has very different, independent, but similar origins. There's the Church Grim of Scandinavian folklore, any number of English black dogs that all have the same characteristics, or even Latin American examples. Even in the modern age, black dogs that are a sign of bad things if you see them have sort of become a niche in internet horror, and I don't need to tell you exactly what classic spooky story I'm talking about there. This is something rooted deep in culture, and I think it goes a bit deeper than the human instinct of wouldn't it be fucked up if there was a really big dog. I'd love to start with the earliest example of this type of legend, but as with family trees in old Europe, it loops back on itself a lot, so it's difficult to point down exactly where it comes from. The Black Shuck in particular has a few links to mythology across Europe that are worth noting, and it gives me more of an excuse to talk about my favorite little boy. See, the legend of the Blythburgh church attack is far from the first example of the Shuck's presence in that area of England. Oftentimes, the creature is cited as appearing before travelers at a crossroads to curse those who see it to die within the year. It was said that if you hear the creature's blood-curdling howl, you ought to close your eyes and not open them until you're sure the beast is gone, just like when you hear your frickin' wife come home when you're watching the game. It's also known to be accompanied by thunderstorms, which, yeah, that checks out. The Black Shuck is often said to be a vessel of, if not the devil himself, which, going by reports of this thing's appearance as a massive lion-sized wolf dog with glowing red eyes, a necklace made of bones, and a Keep Austin Weird sticker on its ass, it's safe to say this is a decidedly demonic critter. Now, where does that loop back to that you might be familiar with? The devil who shows up at a crossroads? That's a classic legend right there. That's the kind of folk story you reminisce about when you hear these newfangled myths like Carmen Winstead and lead being poisonous. I think that the Black Dog legend is a sort of amalgam of different tales from around that time in European history, combined with a few genuinely real fears that we'll get into later. Another legend that gives us a hint towards the origins of the Black Dog is that of the Church Grim, or the Kirkogrim. This one's neat because it points to a possible Viking connection to this whole myth. See, in Scandinavia, when Christianity was just starting to weasel its way into the area, churches were often built with a live lamb or other sacrificial animal buried under the altar. The lamb would be a specter of ill omen around the church, signaling anything from miscarriage to bad harvest to no Vegas luck to anyone unfortunate enough to spot it. Sound familiar? Well, it should, because this exact myth got brought over to England at some point with the same name. The English Church Grim is almost identical, except it swaps out the lamb being buried alive for a dog, and creates a canine specter of evil around the church grounds. This actually links back to the Swedish tradition of the year walk, where someone gets stark naked and walks through the forest at New Year's to see visions. Presumably in medieval Sweden they didn't have ayahuasca yet. At the end of their pilgrimage, the Kirkogrim awaits them. So that's one possible origin for the common curse of the black dog, the omen of ill comings. But what about the dog itself? Surely there must be some reason, if the English legend of the black dog truly came from the days of Viking settlement in the region, that they swapped the lamb out for a small heckin' pupperino. Is it just because all Englishmen are cat people? Well, I do have a theory as to what solidified the black dog as the scary go-to for English campfire stories, but first, let's take a look at some more examples. In North America, the legend has taken on a bit of a different connotation due to trucker culture. During long hauls, the vision of a black dog is said to be the sign of an imminent fatal crash if the trucker doesn't stop their vehicle immediately. This is because, as the trucker grows tired, they hallucinate the black dog before falling asleep at the wheel. This is actually very interesting because it suggests a level of self-fulfilling prophecy in the black dog legend. Someone hears that the black dog will show up as you fall asleep, and when their mind is exhausted, it begins to manifest in a vision of a black dog. Also, 2 glowing eyes on a black blob just has to be the most easy thing for the human mind to hallucinate ever. Think about how many times you see people talking about shadow men at the foot of their bed versus Bill Clinton. Of course, it would be silly to talk about the black dog legend without bringing it back to the first to ever do it, arguably the best, the Greek Cerberus, often thought to be the first ever hellhound. Cerberus was the 3-headed guard dog of the underworld, and just like everything else in Greek mythology, the actual specifics vary from source to source until being solidified into canon by our Lord and Savior Rick Riordan. Cerberus doesn't really share too many traits with its contemporary cousins. It doesn't haunt areas at all, it lives in hell and never leaves, and seeing it isn't really a sign of death because that's how you get into the damn door to begin with. I feel like Cerberus is more of a distant branch off than the ancient ancestor of the black dog legend. They're similar enough to point out, but not really enough to draw a conclusion about. There are countless legends to go over, but not a whole lot of them are all too different from one another. I could talk about the Beast of Bray Road in the USA, a supposed werewolf that stalks a rural country road looking for snacks on John Deere tractors. I could talk about the handful of benevolent black dogs like the Gert Dog of Somerset or Harry Jack, who is only notable for being named Harry Jack. I have saved one for last though, and I feel like it's a fun story because it's the only black dog that's historically documented as being about 100% real. Probably. If you thought the Emu War was a funny thing to rib Australians about, then how about the one time the French government declared war on a single wolf and lost miserably? This is the story of the real black dog of death, the French Beast of Gévaudan. In 1964, a young woman was tending to her cattle when a giant wolf thing sprung out of the woods and tried to run her down, only to be stopped by a herd of angry bulls. This was the first appearance of the nemesis of all Frenchmen for the next few years. Named after the province it appeared in, Gévaudan, the beast was a large wolf-type animal, though some say it was more likely a lion or tiger that somehow made it to France. Jean Boulet was the first person killed by the beast in a similar attack, and I just want to take a side note here to say that the medieval French peasantry is really funny when it comes to religion in a horrible way. See, the Wikipedia page makes special mention that Jean was killed before confessing to her sins, which makes sense given she was mauled to death by an animal that hunted for sport and thusly was buried without sacrament. These fucking guys looked at the mangled corpse of a 14-year-old kid and were like, yeah, it's so tragic what happened here, especially now that she's burning in hell forever. Different times, I guess. Shit is crazy. The beast started to make a name for itself in local communities as bodies kept piling up. At the same time, hunters would try and go for the wolf only to come back with wild stories that it could stand on 2 legs, repel bullets, come back from the dead, and all other sorts of stuff that means they probably just couldn't find it. Of course, the bishops in the towns of Gévaudan were incredibly useful, declaring that the beast was God's righteous wrath against sin, which was the style at the time. I'm pretty sure a medieval bishop would blame a Charlie horse on the wrath of God. The attacks grew more and more frequent to the point that several villages in the region began banding together to drive the beast away whenever they had to go outside of town. Word of this eventually reached the king, who decided that the French military would kill the monster. Various French military officers organized hunts across the Gévaudan region with hundreds of men and got outwitted pretty decisively by an animal with a brain the size of a lemon. One hunt was cancelled because nobody could agree on the strategy, the next cancelled because they never found the thing, and another called off because when the officers actually found the wolf, they shot at it, missed every shot because it's the 1700s and guns are shit, and blamed it on the devil. Eventually, the 4th hunt found a wolf that was big enough to maybe be the wolf in question, and declared triumphantly that the monster had been slain. The large wolf was stuffed and mounted in the Palace of Versailles, and the wolf attacks continued because the above-average wolf that got shot was not the demonic, bloodthirsty evil beast they were looking for. For years onward, the French royalty patted themselves on the back for handling the situation so well, while reports of the monster eating babies kept rolling in. The English press had a field day with it, talking about how the French can't even kill one dog, while every petition for the royalty to try again was met with a resounding, "What the hell are you talking about? We already killed the wolf, you're just imagining that dead 7-year-old with their neck eaten." The apocryphal account of the wolf's demise is attributed to Jean Chastel, who allegedly melted down silver from amulets of the Virgin Mary and made bullets to go kill the beast with. Whether or not it was him, someone else, or just natural causes, the wolf attacks finally stopped around the time he said he killed it. It's hotly debated on whether or not the Beast of Gévaudan was a wolf or some other predatory animal, or whether or not it was even a single creature to begin with. Some think that a pack of wild hyenas managed to walk their way up through the Sahara Desert to France for some reason and decided to never hunt in packs, despite that being the only way hyenas are remotely a threat to humans. Whatever it was, the story no doubt left a mark on culture of the time. While it doesn't predate every black dog sighting across Europe, the Beast of Gévaudan predates enough of them that there was definitely some mixing going on. Maybe a pub tale in Blythburgh of a spooky dog gets more heads turning because a spooky dog has been gutting orphans in France for the past few weeks. Maybe kids did what they do best, take adults' conversation topics and turn them into rumors, usually about poop. Whatever the cause or origin, I think it's fascinating to look at. Just try not to think about whether that Doberman you saw on the side of the highway was too tall or not, or what that crouched shape in the corner of your room is when you wake up in the middle of the night, or if those eyes on the side of the dark road are going to jump out at you in the next intersection. Has everything that's happened recently been because you saw something you weren't supposed to? Is there something evil watching you outside your window, or is that just the reflection of something? You're not going to turn the lights on and check, are you? Are you sure the creaking in those floorboards is your house settling? When you close your eyes, can't you feel the teeth slowly sinking? Heckin' pupperino doggo small bean chonker woof woof do me a heckin' startle friend time ooga. Hi, I don't really have a whole lot to say in this end card. I'm sorry that I haven't posted in forever. It has been a long 2 years. I'm not really gonna go into everything that happened because it was bad and I don't really want to remember everything that happened, but I did lose 3 computers in this time, so I've lost everything that I had been working on multiple times. Hopefully this is good. I don't plan on doing another big absence, but I don't know when inspiration will strike. So yeah, hope you enjoyed. Thanks for sticking with me. See ya.